The call came while I was kneeling beside my old sedan with a flashlight between my teeth and engine oil on my wrist. It was a Tuesday night, a little after 9, the kind of night where the neighbors' windows glowed warm, sprinklers clicked in perfect rhythm, and every driveway on our street held something polished and expensive. Except mine. My car was 19 years old. The passenger door groaned when it opened. The paint had faded from midnight blue to something closer to tired gray. The left speaker buzzed whenever the bass hit too hard, and the air conditioner worked only when it felt respected. My wife hated that car. Ava called it embarrassing. She said it made us look poor. She said people in our neighborhood noticed. I told her people in our neighborhood noticed too much. That night I was replacing a cracked hose myself because the part cost $28 and the shop wanted $300. That was when my phone buzzed on the hood. Ava. I wiped my hand on a rag and answered. "Hey," I said, "you okay?" For 2 seconds, nobody spoke. Then a man laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a wrong number laugh, a comfortable, cruel laugh. "You really do answer fast," he said. "That's sad." I stood slowly. The garage light hummed overhead. "Who is this?" Another laugh. In the background, I heard music, ice clinking in a glass, and then Ava's voice, low and sharp. "Don't," she said. The man ignored her. "You know," he said, "she told me you were cheap, but I thought she was exaggerating." I looked at the screen again. It was definitely her phone. He was calling me from her phone. That was the moment the evening changed shape. Not because my wife was with another man. Some part of me had already suspected that. It was the choice to call. The choice to make me hear him. The choice to turn betrayal into entertainment. He wanted to mock me. He wanted an audience. So I gave him one. "Put Ava on," I said. "She's busy," he replied. Enjoying herself for once. I heard her say his name under her breath. Bryce. That was all I needed. Bryce Kellen, Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions at Apex Holdings. A man who wore Italian shoes, smiled too wide in board photos, and thought every room belonged to him because no one had ever made him leave one. He said, "You know what your problem is? You think being careful with money makes you noble. It doesn't. It makes you small." I leaned against the car and stared at the cracked concrete beneath my boots. He continued, louder now, performing for whoever was listening. "You drive a hoopty and clip coupons. You're a loser. She's with a real man now." Ava whispered, "Bryce, stop." But she didn't take the phone. She didn't say sorry. She didn't tell him he was wrong. And that silence told me more than the insult did. For years, Ava had called my lifestyle cheap. Not disciplined, not practical, not careful. Cheap. She hated when I compared grocery prices. Hated when I kept the old sedan instead of leasing something new. Hated that I wore the same watch my father gave me instead of buying a status symbol with a waiting list. Hated that I packed leftovers for lunch when her friends posted rooftop brunches and designer bags. What she didn't know was that my old watch had seen me sign the papers that created the private trust holding 68% of Apex Holdings. What she didn't know was that I wasn't avoiding luxury because I couldn't afford it. I was avoiding it because I knew exactly what it cost. Not the price. The appetite. Bryce was still talking. "She said you make her split appetizers," he said. "She said you keep spreadsheets for household expenses. Man, that's pathetic." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because Bryce Kellen had no idea he was insulting the person who signed off on his division's budget every quarter through a trust office he had never been important enough to enter. At that moment, I finally understood the headline my life had become. My wife's lover had called me from my wife's phone to humiliate me for living below my means. And he worked for me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I didn't ask Ava why. I didn't argue. I just smiled and asked, "How's your senior VP position at Apex Holdings?" The laughter stopped. Not faded. Stopped. "What?" Bryce said. I could hear him breathing now. I said nothing. He tried again, but the arrogance had slipped. "How do you know that?" Ava said, "What is he talking about?" I looked at the old sedan. At the open toolbox. At the coupon envelope sitting on the passenger seat because I had stopped for groceries before coming home. Then I said the words Bryce would remember for the rest of his career. "Because I own it, and you're fired." Silence. Then a glass hit something hard. Ava spoke first. "Elijah?" It was the first time she had said my name all night. Not sweetheart, not husband. My name. Like she had just realized I was a person in the room. Bryce came back on the line, but now his voice had lost its expensive polish. "You can't just fire me." "No," I said. "Not for sleeping with my wife. That would be messy. But I can terminate you for the audit that's been sitting on my desk since Friday." Another silence. This one was different. This one had fear in it. "You don't know anything," he said. "I know about the vendor reimbursements," I replied. "The private dinners charged as acquisition meetings. The weekend suite billed under client development. The jewelry coded as executive gifts. And I know about Astor Lane Consulting." Ava inhaled sharply. There it was. Astor Lane. The little brand advisory company she had told me was just a passion project. I had seen the name in the audit, but I hadn't known what it meant until that phone call. Bryce had approved 6 payments to Astor Lane Consulting in 3 months. Each payment was under the internal review threshold. Each invoice used vague language. Brand alignment. Market positioning. Client. Mood research. Corporate poetry for theft. Bryce said, "Listen, man." I cut him off. "No, you called to talk, so listen." Ava said, "Elijah, please." That almost got to me. Almost. Because 8 years of marriage had trained my heart to respond when she sounded scared. But fear is not remorse. Fear is what people feel when consequences arrive earlier than expected. I said, "Then I did what you should have done before dialing my number. I checked who was really on the other end." I ended the call. For a long moment, the garage was quiet except for the ticking engine. I placed the phone on the hood and finished tightening the hose clamp. That might sound strange. Maybe you imagine I threw the wrench or punched the wall or collapsed right there beside the car. I didn't. When you grow up poor, real poor, the kind where one broken appliance can swallow a month, you learn not to waste motion during a crisis. You fix the leak first. Then you deal with the flood. I filled the reservoir, started the car, and let it run until the temperature needle held steady. Only then did I go inside. The house looked exactly the way Ava wanted it to look. White stone counters, gold fixtures. Abstract art, she said, had movement. A dining table big enough for people we never invited over, everything staged, polished, and cold. My old leather chair was gone from the living room. She had donated it while I was traveling, then told me it didn't fit our aesthetic. I walked past the empty space where it used to sit and opened the safe in my office. Inside were 3 folders. One for personal documents. One for trust records. One for the prenuptial agreement Ava had insisted was unnecessary until my attorney insisted it was not. I took out the 3rd folder. Then I called Amara Okafor, the CEO of Apex Holdings. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Elijah," she said, "this must be serious." "It is." I told her to assemble the Emergency Ethics Committee at 8 in the morning. Compliance, HR legal, internal audit. No warning to Bryce, no courtesy call, no quiet resignation option until we reviewed everything. Amara was silent for a moment. "Is this about the Keelan file?" "Yes." "There's more than reimbursements," she said. I looked toward the hallway, where Ava's framed wedding portrait hung in silver. "Then bring all of it." I did not sleep that night. At 1:14 a.m., Ava texted, "We need to talk." At 1:22, another message. Bryce was drunk. He shouldn't have called. At 1:39, "You lied to me about who you are." That one made me sit back in my chair. I had lied. I thought about the years I had suggested we live within one income. The years I told her security mattered more than image. The years I asked her whether she loved me or the life she wanted me to perform. I never told her I was broke. She assumed it because it made her feel superior to me. At 2:03, she sent a final message. "Don't ruin his life because you're hurt." There it was. Not, "Don't ruin our marriage." Not, "I'm sorry." His life. I put the phone face down. At 7:40 the next morning, I arrived at Apex Holdings through the private entrance beneath the East Tower. The receptionist upstairs would not have recognized me. Most people in the building wouldn't. I preferred it that way. My ownership sat behind layers: Northgate Trust, 2 holding vehicles, and a voting agreement that kept me away from daily theater. I attended quarterly board sessions by video. I read numbers. I asked uncomfortable questions. I hired excellent people and stayed out of their way, unless someone mistook silence for absence. Bryce had made that mistake. The ethics committee met in conference room 9, a glass-walled room overlooking the river. Amara sat at the head of the table. Beside her were Tessa Pike from HR, Inez Shaw from outside counsel, and a compliance director with a stack of folders arranged so neatly they looked dangerous. I took the seat at the far end. No one wasted time. Tessa opened the file. Over the last 9 months, Mr. Kalin approved 23 expenses that lacked adequate business justification. 6 vendor payments went to Astor Lane Consulting. That vendor was onboarded without competitive review and approved directly by him. Inez continued. Astor Lane Consulting is registered to Ava Crane. Hearing my wife's name in that room did not break me. It clarified me. The compliance director slid a page across the table. Payment total, $86,000. For a second, I looked away. Not because of the money. Because I remembered Ava standing in our kitchen 3 weeks earlier, laughing at me for buying store-brand detergent. $86,000 in fake consulting fees. And I was the cheap one. Amara's mouth tightened. There's more. There always is. Bryce had used company funds to pay for private travel. He had pressured junior staff to approve vague invoices. He had promised Ava introductions to luxury clients through Apex's network. He had used confidential acquisition information to impress her, sending screenshots to her personal email. Not just adultery. Not just arrogance. A pattern. By 9:15, the room had reached the same conclusion. Termination for cause. Referral of the vendor payments to legal recovery. Forensic review of his division. Immediate suspension of system access. No severance. No negotiated announcement. No soft landing. Tessa looked at me carefully. There is one issue. Because of your personal connection, we need the record to show you did not unilaterally order this outcome. Good, I said. Make the record clean. Inez nodded. The evidence supports termination independent of the phone call. Then do it properly. At 9:42, Bryce arrived. He came in wearing confidence-like armor. Dark suit, open collar, expensive watch. The same smile from the annual report. Then he saw me. The smile died slowly. What is this? He asked. Amara gestured to the chair opposite Tessa. Sit down. He didn't. Elijah, he said, forcing a laugh, can we speak privately? No. His eyes flicked around the room. He was calculating. Men like Bryce always calculate when charm fails. Who can be flattered? Who can be bullied? Who can be blamed? He chose wrong. This is a personal matter, he said. Tessa opened the folder. No, Mr. Kalin, this is an employment matter. For the next 14 minutes, she read the findings. Bryce interrupted twice. The first time, Inez warned him. The second time, Amara told him that if he spoke again before HR finished, the company would end the meeting and communicate through counsel only. That shut him up. When Tessa reached Astor Lane Consulting, Bryce looked at me. "She told me you knew." That sentence landed harder than I expected. Not because I believed him. Because part of me believed Ava had said exactly that. She had always been good at making permission out of silence. Tessa continued. "Your employment is terminated for cause, effective immediately. Your access has been revoked. You will surrender your laptop, phone, access badge, and company card before leaving the building." Bryce's face changed. The arrogance cracked first. Then came anger. "You can't do this," he said, but softly, as if he already knew we had. Amara folded her hands. "We can, and we have." He looked at me again. "You're really going to destroy me over her?" I almost answered quickly. Then I thought about the call, the laughter, the way he had used my wife's phone like a trophy, the way Ava had stayed quiet while he called me a loser. "No," I said, "you destroyed yourself with company money. She was just where you spent it." Security entered without drama. That was one of Amara's talents. She understood theater well enough to avoid giving it to people who wanted it. Bryce stood there for a moment, waiting for someone to soften. No one did. He removed his badge and dropped it on the table. The sound was small. Smaller than I expected. By noon, Ava was in the lobby. Of course she was. She arrived dressed for damage control. Cream blazer, perfect hair, diamond earrings I had never seen before and suddenly understood. The front desk called upstairs. "Mrs. Crane is asking to see you." I almost said no. Then I looked at the folder marked Astor Lane and changed my mind. Send her to the visitor conference room. Not my office. Not the board floor. A visitor room. Ava was already pacing when I entered. The first thing she said was, "How could you humiliate him like that?" I closed the door behind me. "Good morning to you too." Her eyes were red, but her makeup held. Ava had always known how to cry without looking undone. Bryce lost everything. He lost his job. He'll be blacklisted. He stole from the company. She flinched, then recovered. He made mistakes. No, he made invoices. She crossed her arms. "You're enjoying this." I studied her. There was a time when I would have rushed to deny that. I would have tried to prove I was not cruel. I would have comforted her through the consequences of betraying me. That man had spent years shrinking himself to keep peace in a house Ava kept filling with things she respected more than him. "I'm not enjoying it," I said. "I'm allowing it." She shook her head. "You let me think we were struggling." "No, Ava, I let you see how I live. You decided that meant struggle. You hid Apex from me. I protected a premarital asset from exactly this kind of appetite." Her face hardened. "So now I'm greedy?" I placed the first invoice on the table. Astor Lane Consulting. She looked down. Her lips parted. I placed the second invoice beside it. Then the third. Then the sixth. $86,000, I said. "Paid from Apex to your company through Bryce's department." She sat down. Not gracefully. Suddenly. "Bryce said it was normal," she whispered. "I'm sure he did. He said everybody does consulting." "Did you consult?" She stared at the papers. "Did you provide market research? Client strategy? Brand alignment analysis?" Her jaw tightened. "Elijah, I was unhappy." There it was again. The universal solvent. Unhappy. As if unhappiness turned theft into therapy. As if loneliness turned betrayal into self-care. As if wanting more gave her permission to take what she had not earned. I sat across from her. "You could have been unhappy, honestly." She looked up. "What does that even mean?" It means you could have told me you wanted out. You could have told me the life we built wasn't enough for you. You could have left without helping a man steal from my company and then letting him call me from your phone to laugh about my car." Her eyes filled. "He shouldn't have called you." "No," I said. "You shouldn't have let him." That one found its mark. For the first time since she entered, Ava had nothing ready. I opened the final folder. This is from Inez. "Legal recovery will be handled by the company. Separately, my attorney is filing for divorce today. The house remains mine under the agreement. The trust remains mine. Any claim you make will have to survive the vendor payment record." Her voice dropped. "You'd use that against me?" I almost laughed, but it would have been too bitter. "You sent invoices to my company through your lover, and you're asking if I'll use the truth?" She pushed the papers away like they were burning her fingers. "I loved you." "No," I said quietly. "You loved being underestimated by me because it made your secrets feel safe." Her tears spilled then. Real tears, maybe. But real tears do not undo real choices. A knock came at the door. Inez stepped in with a woman from legal operations. Ava looked from her to me. "What is this?" I stood. Justice arriving in paperwork instead of shouting. Inez placed a sealed envelope on the table. "Mrs. Crane, this is formal notice that Apex Holdings is seeking recovery of improperly paid vendor funds pending investigation. You are also being instructed not to delete or alter any communication related to Astor Lane Consulting, Bryce Kellen, or Apex Holdings." Ava stared at the envelope. Her face went pale. "This is insane." "No," I said, "this is documented." Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Whatever she saw made her close her eyes. I didn't need to ask. Bryce, probably. Or maybe not Bryce anymore. Men like him rarely stayed attached to disasters once the money stopped moving. Ava stood slowly. "You're really ending our marriage here? In a conference room?" I looked through the glass wall at the lobby beyond it. People crossed the marble floor with coffees, briefcases, visitor badges, ordinary concerns. None of them knew that my life had split open under fluorescent lights. "I'm not ending it here," I said. "You ended it when you handed him your phone." She tried one last time. "Elijah, please, we can talk at home." Home. That word had carried me through years of restraint, through every insult dressed as disappointment, through every dinner where Ava smiled at richer men and came home colder to me, through every moment I wondered if being loved quietly was enough. But a home is not made of furniture or stone counters or framed photos. It is made of safety. And she had made mine unsafe, then mocked me for locking the doors softly behind her. I said, "There is no home for us anymore." The legal operations woman opened the conference room door. Ava looked at me as if waiting for the old version of me to appear. The one who would soften. The one who would explain. The one who would trade dignity for peace. He didn't come. Down the hall, the elevator opened. Security escorted Bryce through the lobby with a cardboard box in his hands. His tie was loosened. His face was gray. He saw Ava through the glass. For 1 second, they looked at each other. Not like lovers. Like accomplices, realizing neither one had saved the other. Bryce looked away first. That was when Ava understood. The real man had no kingdom, no protection, no grand rescue waiting outside the consequences. Just a box, a revoked badge, and a lobby full of witnesses. I watched him hand over his company phone at the security desk. Then I watched Ava pick up the envelope with shaking hands. No shouting. No chase. No final plea. Just two people who had mistaken my restraint for weakness standing inside the truth they created. Bryce was escorted out first. Ava followed a minute later, holding the legal notice against her chest like it could shield her from what came next. The glass doors opened. The afternoon light hit them both. Then the doors closed, and justice was served. Some people mistake humility for failure because they only understand money when it makes noise. But quiet discipline is not weakness. Loyalty is not stupidity. And the person who says the least may be the one holding every receipt. The lesson is simple. Never confuse someone's simple life with a small life. If this story kept you listening, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, was Elijah too calm, or was that exactly why he won?